I was that paranoid I had to go to the back because I thought everyone was talking about it. So I managed to just finish the run just in time, and when everyone fell in and marched away, I was knackered lying on the floor, and they all turned into the band of Dumbo.
I'm Sonya Morton Firth, and you're tuned in to the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Ger Fowler, Army veteran and CEO of multi-award-winning Veterans in Crisis. With a desire to help others, Ger launched Veterans in Crisis. Join us as we discuss Ger's time in the Army and the community he has created to help veterans. I believe health is the greatest form of wealth we have, which is why I'm so excited to be partnered with Brother in Arms. Brother in Arms is a wellness brand dedicated to working with veterans, first responders, and anyone on the front line. Through their education, support, and premium CBD products, they help alleviate and restore the lives of those that have been affected by physical and mental trauma. Learn about the life-changing benefits and power of CBD. Join their community today. Hit the link below. Ger, thank you so much for being a guest in my home today. It's wonderful to get you here. You've come all the way from Sunderland?
And I thought you were going to say Newcastle now.
Well, it's taken us a bit of a while to get you on my show because I had to get over the fact that you were from Sunderland. I thought, I'm just going to have to bury everything and just, you know.
I think you said it was because of COVID, so now you've just given up now, haven't you?
Completely. Look, Ger, jokes aside, it is wonderful to have you here. I am just wondering, where did you get your name from? Ger. Now, I've been putting how to pronounce it because I bet a few people call you Ger.
Yeah, they do, but idiots call us Ger.
Oh, do they?
Politicians call us Ger. Yeah. It comes from Jared, but only my mum and priests call us that. And I'm assuming you're neither.
No, I'm definitely not your mum, but you never know, I might have a little collar coming out sooner or later. Ger, just for my audience, can you tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do now before getting on to your story?
My name's Ger Fowler, and I'm the founder and the CEO of Veterans in Crisis Sunderland.
Wonderful. And I want to talk more about Veterans in Crisis, but before we do, I want to talk about your story and your time in the Army. Can you take us back?
Yeah,
time?
So I grew up, always wanted to join the Army after seeing the Iranian embassy. Because then in the days you didn't have Sky or anything, so rolling news wasn't a thing. So when you saw that live on TV, I just thought, that's definitely me. Like, I mean, I never got an SS, like, so it wasn't me. But I put my mind to that all the way through my childhood. And the Falklands War, so as soon as I was 16, I joined the junior leaders of the Light Infantry.
And where were you stationed?
I
or
was
where did you
stationed in Winchester for nearly a year to do my training, because junior leaders do like extra training. And then I got posted to the 1st Battalion of the Light Infantry, who were in Ormont in Northern Ireland.
Now, back in the day, because some of our viewers might not realise that we even there was war with Northern Ireland, but I remember those days, and I remember London being blown up regularly on the news, and the IRA were a real threat. Can you tell us what it was like back then?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm the same age as you, but grew up with that happening, people getting shot when they were at train stations, pubs getting blown up, you know, so that all I wanted to do was join the Army and go to Northern Ireland. So when I'd finished my training, the 1st Battalion were in Northern Ireland, the battalion were there, so that's why I picked that one to go. I left training at 17 and the Army sent us straight away, and I was there for about a month, and then they realised I was too young, so that sent us home. She's supposed to be 17 and a half.
What did you do
Well,
when they sent you home?
To be honest, so the day they sent us, I got a flight from Newcastle at 7 o'clock in the morning, landed in Belfast at 8 in the morning, and they didn't pick us up till midnight. So at 17-year-old, I just thought everyone was a terrorist in the airport, and it was just horrendous, to be quite honest. But I mean, you get through things, and then once I got to camp, you join a thing called junior under 18 platoon, because you're under 18 obviously, but you're supposed to be 17 and a half. You just stay on camp, you do like duties on camp, And then they must have seen some notes and realised I was too young, so they sent us home for a couple of weeks, and then they sent us to the 3rd Battalion, who were going on exercise in Germany, so I went with them, and then came back when I was 17 and a half.
And what happened when you were actually the age you were meant to join?
Well, when I was 17 and a half, when I went back, you stay in the under 18 platoon. In that time, I went to the Falklands. I volunteered to go to the Falklands for a bit. Used to do a lot of training. Then I got posted to A Company, my first posting was on the border. So you basically just check cars going from north and south. And then you just do like a rotation of different jobs.
And what was the worst thing that you saw when you were out there, or you
the
maybe
worst
experienced?
There was a lot of Newcastle tops.
Were we over there then?
No, I mean obviously what had happened to us was I was in A Company. We were going to go down South Armagh and dig trenches, so we got a couple of days leave. On the way back, the bus we were on got blew up. Luckily, I just got off. Me and 6 other people to go in a transit van with all the bags, but the bus got blew up and 8 people.
Sorry, how come you got off?
Because there's 2 airports, so we landed at one airport, drove to the next airport, then there wasn't enough seats on the bus, and they needed 6 people to get into a transit van with the bags, so 6 of us luckily got on that and then went in front of the bus.
So that was fate, really. You should have been, in theory, on that bus. Do you ever look back and think?
I struggled with it for years with survivor's guilt, people who died, and it's horrible.
Do you have friends there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was 8 lads. The lads who died were all under 21. I was 18 at the time. My friends were all 18. So it was shocking.
Did you have any? Because you're fairly young to go through that. Did you have any sort of help from the?
No, none at all.
Sort of psychological help, or they didn't?
No, they just tell you to put your berry on and get back to work. I mean, this happened at midnight on Friday. Saturday, I had to go to a room to tell you who was dead. Saturday afternoon, I had to pack the guy in the bed opposite to me's box who was dead. Saturday tea time, I went to the hospital to visit the people who were injured. And 6 o'clock Sunday morning, I went into South Armagh to dig trenches and stay in a trench for 4 weeks.
And so nothing was said of it. It was just
nothing at all. Not one thing. It was never ever spoke about. I've got a friend who I joined the army with, and me and him still never talk about it. And we go on holiday together, and we're 51 now, and this happened when we were 18, and we never ever speak about it.
Really? Yeah. Why? How come you don't talk about it with your mate?
No idea. No idea.
Do you know? Is he suffer?
He hasn't suffered as much as me outwardly, but I suspect he has inwardly. But we never talk about it. To be honest, when I get to see him, I like it to be happy stuff. So I don't really want to talk about it with him, And it's just because it's so long ago, we've got to a stage where we don't really want to bring it up.
And you've never sort of had a drink with it. I'm just putting this sort of thought out. You haven't had a drink with him and said, "Do you remember that day?" or "Do you remember back when?"
No. I had a drink with him on Remembrance Day, and like we were remembering, but we didn't speak about it. No.
So when did you realise it affected you, or did it affect you?
Well, I was 18 at the time, but this was 1988. Ecstasy had just come out, so I was 18 and I got into that sort of thing. So I would never blame what happened on that, because it would have probably happened anyway, me taking ecstasy. So I got sort of into the rave scene.
So you were still in the army?
Yeah.
I
was still in Northern Ireland then. I went to Ibiza twice in 1988, and that just changed my life. So I've just sort of lived for that, to be honest.
I guess when I think about the rave scene and ecstasy, and it was when I was young as well, I can't really see how the military sort of fit into that. Did it fit?
Not really, no, because you can't really have an infantry soldier who wants to cuddle everybody all the time.
Exactly.
No, it didn't.
I love you, mate.
I mean, when we were in Ireland, it was just a thing like you did when you were on leave, and when we went to Ibiza or Benidorm, wherever we went. But when we went to Berlin after Ireland, Berlin's obviously the party city, so it was more or less every weekend we'll be doing it. But there would be like the army wouldn't tell you this, but there would be probably about 50 of us out of the battalion doing it.
Can you imagine the net if you were suddenly had to go into war and you're hugging the enemy on
the flowers in the end of our rifles.
Yes, love it.
Right. I mean, to me though, ecstasy changed lots of things, because not only did it make us feel better, but at the time I was drinking really heavily, and only being small, I was drinking like far too much, and I was being sick all the time. So when I discovered drugs, I was never sick. That was a completely different kind of thing. I felt better. The next day I was better. I mean, I'll tell you a story if you want. One time I took acid. I went to see the Happy Mondays, and the next morning I had to go on a BFT, a run. And I was that paranoid I had to go to the back because I thought everyone was talking about it. So I managed to just finish the run just in time, and when everyone fell in to march away, I was knackered lying on the floor, and they all turned into the band of Dumbo.
You were seeing this, yeah, you were seeing Dumbo.
With the big things clapping and that. And the sergeant major was shouting at us to get up, what's the matter with you? And all I could see was just these people, these elephants walking away.
So, Joe, what made you leave the military? I think that's a good point to
be honest,
Dumbo.
I had to make a decision. Did I want to stay in the army, or did I want to enjoy going to raves? So I wanted to go to raves more. I enjoyed that, I'd been in the army since I was 16. I hadn't really had much of a childhood because my parents were quite strict Catholics. This was like free, and it was really good.
Okay, so when you got back did you go straight back to Sunderland?
I did, yeah. Well, back to Sunderland, I didn't have any I didn't think of anything. When I'd been in the army, I'd been glassed in a fight, and I ended up getting some compensation, so I thought I'd just live off that for a bit and go to raves and enjoy myself. And I just fell into that kind of lifestyle. And
did at any point the drugs obviously must have caught up with you?
To be honest, after about 2 years of doing it more or less every weekend, like the novelty wears off. So I just calmed down and didn't do it anymore. I was smoking weed all the time. But I had a lad who joined the army, and he was my best friend, lived around the corner, and we've done all this together since we were 16. And he killed himself, and I didn't know why he killed himself. He didn't tell us he was going to do it, anything like that.
To this day, do you know why?
No idea. And like that played on my mind, so I'd sort of survivor's guilt about that, and I felt like a bit guilty that he couldn't sort of reach out to us, if that makes sense. Yeah. He didn't reach out to anyone, and no one knows why it happened. So I went to the doctors about that, because I was feeling really depressed, and I wasn't taking ecstasy then, and the doctor sort of gave us a psychiatric nurse and then a psychiatrist and stuff like that. And then what it came down to was sort of the trapped feelings from what had happened in Northern Ireland. That's what the diagnosis of PTSD.
So how many years after, or how long after Ireland was that? When
I'd left Ireland in 89 and I got diagnosed in 94.
With PTSD? Yeah. And it had gone back to this event, I guess.
And they put it down to it not being spoke about, and never actually talking to anybody about it. But I mean, talking to people about it, I'm quite easy talking about it now. But I, to be honest, I don't really want to talk to any mental health professional. Because the mental health professionals I had then, and I assume it's different now. But I mean, I had a young sort of psychiatrist. I think he's perhaps 22 or 23, and all he was saying to us was, "I know exactly how you feel," and I was just like, "Well, I'm sure you don't," So none of it really worked.
So that was what they gave. So in terms of trying to help you recover from the PTSD, you were put in front of 22-year-old counsellors.
Yeah, and it was rubbish, to be honest.
Is there anything else they sort of prescribed to you? Or?
I was taking antidepressants, which I didn't really like, but I sort of...
Were you taking the antidepressants and the ecstasy? Or
no,
was
no. The ecstasy was an antidepressant,
I was going to
say. No, I'd stopped taking ecstasy then. All I was doing then, illegal drugs, was more or less smoking weed all the time. I ended up, quite depressed. But then, can I tell you, well, it isn't funny, but it is to me. So, one of the recommendations of us being depressed was to get a dog. Gets a dog. About a year down the line, got the dog out on the park, and 2 dogs attacked us, and I nearly get killed. So,
because they'd gone for your dog, had you, and you tried to pull your dog.
Yeah. So I ended up with 28 stitches in my arm, 8 in my leg, I had 34 puncture wounds. I had 3 discs out my back.
My God.
I know.
So
It is quite a funny story,
I'm
isn't
trying
it?
not to laugh because it isn't,
It is.
obviously it is.
I
It's
can see
serious.
the irony in it.
Yeah,
I can see the irony in it. And the good thing about it...
Did you keep your dog?
Yeah, he just had a bit of a scar. I mean, he's dead now, like, I've got a different dog now. But I could see the irony in it. But what I did when I got out of the hospital is I went straight on the park where it happened with my crutches and all bandaged and stuff, just so then I didn't sort of put that at the back like I had with all my other feelings. I wanted to stand and think, right, well, I've done it now, so I can just come back to the park with the dog.
Facing it front on, face on.
And that was a good thing. So the stuff I'd learnt how to cope with PTSD made us not have PTSD from the dog attack. I mean, I've never had a thing. I was really scared of dogs. I'm not as bad now, but I'm obviously not going to put my hand anywhere near anyone.
No, I can imagine you being quite wary about it. And was that, do you think, was that your turning point?
No, God, I've had loads of different things happen to us then. That was sort of, I ended up then really depressed because of the physical injuries I had. So I was telling
dog
them,
injuries.
I was telling them how to learn how to be able to use my hand again because of the took like a bit out.
Sorry, going back to the dog incident, how were you found? What about the owner of the 2 dogs?
So the owner was a woman who had the 2 dogs. They were Neapolitan Mastiffs, which were quite big, and she just had them off the lead. It was all, if I picture the scene, so it was all snow. Right, I'd been out all night before drinking and smoking weed, and I thought I'd take the dog out, and then this happened, and luckily some guys who were cleaning the windows on the ladders, seeing what was happening, and they ran into the park with the ladders like long, and they hit them. The dogs ran away, and then they chased the blokes on the ladders with the ladders, and then they told me to run, and then as I was running, then everything was sideways, so I must have collapsed, and then one dog had me hood, and one dog had me tracksuit bottoms, which was, I don't know if you've ever been told, make sure you've got underpants on, just in case you get knocked. Just in case you get knocked over. Right?
Oh, yes.
Do it, yes. When you're a kid.
Make sure you've got a nice pair of knickers on. Sorry.
Yes. Well, make sure you do it if you're going to get attacked off dogs, because I didn't, and they were pulling me tracksuit bottoms down. So I had bites all on me. But...
Oh, gosh, bless you. And, don't you used to go down the dogs, but I guess the dogs were put down.
Yeah. And the woman had to go to court and stuff like that. But then I kind of suffered the physical side of that. Back problems. I've had operations on my back. One disc totally went, and then a bone had grew over the top because we waited so long. I've had that cut off, So look, I've had loads of bad parts because of that. But because of that, I became addicted to strong painkillers like tramadol, dihydrocodeine, diazepam, or Oromorph.
Wow! So you've got off the you stopped partying, ecstasy, and you've then gone on to painkillers, these strong painkillers that I know you can get very addicted to.
Yeah, it's unbelievable because I wasn't addicted to the other drugs that I sort of liked, but then I became addicted to this, and I didn't even realise I was addicted, but I was taking something like 30, I think it was, a day of these really strong painkillers and drinking Oromorph at the same time. But then I was smoking weed as well, and I was drinking alcohol, and then...
That's a concoction for a disaster.
Yeah, but then I was so out of it because they were all downers. I was getting cocaine and taking cocaine, so I was awake. Yeah. So my life was a total mess.
So, Joe, you were taking all of these painkillers, you were smoking weed. At what point did you turn yourself around? Because you can't be.
It was, I'd sort of fell out with some people in Sunderland, and they grassed us to the police. So my house got raided. It'll be 12 years on New Year's Eve. And my house had been raided before because I've been in trouble at football. And I didn't really care. Before I didn't have any sort of consequence for anything that happened to us. I could have been killed. I could have went to jail. I didn't really care. But now I had a daughter. So when my house got raided, I think she was 4. That was just a wake-up call. And I just thought, that's never happening again. I'm not putting her through this. There isn't any point in me bringing a daughter into the world and then get me house raided and stuff like that. So I just thought, it's not happening again. So 12 years, I give up everything on that day. I give up smoking weed, drinking, alcohol, and all the painkillers.
So you just went totally cold turkey? There was no sort of plan of doing this slowly. It's just like, bam, let's do it all.
The plan was the police had took me weed, so I didn't have any weed anyway. And I just thought, the only way my life will change is if I change it. Nobody else is going to do it. So on that day, I just said, right, when I got out, I think I got out about 11 o'clock, and I've never ever made like a New Year's resolution before. And I just said, right, then I'll just not do it. And like, my father was thinking, nah, that's bullshit. But I just did it.
And they say you don't stick to your New Year's resolutions. Well, there's one that you stuck to. And so, how did you go from that to, we've got to talk about Veterans in Crisis, how that started. You're wearing such a lovely T-shirt today, is that?
Yeah. So, Veterans in Crisis came out of a sort of another bad experience. So, I'd sorted myself out. I had a baby with my niece. Everything was going well. And one day I was in my parents' house and my dad died, and I gave him CPR. And it didn't work. He was dead. The paramedic said he was dead anyway. But that made us feel really guilty. Brought back some really horrible thoughts.
Why did you feel guilty?
Because when you watch it on the telly, everyone always comes alive, and he didn't come alive.
Yeah, but that's just the Hollywood.
It is, right? But it just, I felt I should have brought him round. But the paramedic said he was already dead. I pulled the stick out of his mouth, give him mouth to mouth and everything, and it didn't work anymore. So from that day, I said, right, well, I'm just going to get a job where I help people. So I just went and worked for free at a homeless charity. So I just paid my own wages for 10 months. Worked 40-hour weeks till I learned about stuff. And in that time, I was working in private hostels in Sunderland, and I noticed there was a lot of veterans that weren't getting any help at all. Because people think you just go to the British Legion, they'll give you stuff. But if you haven't got a mobile phone, if you haven't got the money to get to Newcastle, if you haven't got the internet to fill the forms and things like that, it's really difficult. So these are a lot of the forgotten homeless. So I started what I call now Veterans in Crisis.
Why do you think there are so many veterans that are homeless?
Well, there's not in Sunderland now because of us. I think it's a lot of things. Pride's a big thing. You don't want to go and ask for help. That's the main thing that I've found. However, there's other factors like if you've been in the army since you were 16, you leave when you're in your 40s, you don't know about getting a house, you don't know about getting a doctor. Simple things like getting a dentist.
Things we take for granted, I guess, as a civvy,
When you join the forces, they sort of make you the way they want you. But when you leave, they don't make you back to a civilian. You just go, and you've got all them still military things in you.
So I've spoken to quite a few veterans, and they say, without wanting to sound too dismissive on the government, there isn't much of a transition program afterwards. Has that changed at all?
Well, not to my knowledge, but if you do less than 6 years, and I did 5, you get no transition. So you've got all them people, plus if you get kicked out because of drugs, nothing happens. They don't even tell anybody that you've been kicked out because of drugs. So then it's the NHS's problem. But if they don't go for treatment themselves, that means they just spiral out of control.
And what's the biggest thing that you see at Veterans in Crisis? What in terms of the veterans that walk through the door that need the help?
Mental health.
Mental health,
yeah. But mental health could be because of a few things. It's not all because of the military. It could be stuff that's happening before they join the military. It could be stuff that happens after. A lot of it's alcohol based. I mean, I worked for Northumbria University, and I did a study. And the average time for a veteran to ask for help about alcohol is 18 years. Not the alcohol is the problem, it's the damage you've done to your body, it's the psychological damage, there's a lot of other things to that. And another thing, so people think getting someone into a house when they're homeless is the hardest thing, that's the easiest. So the quickest we've did it is 15 minutes. So from being street homeless to a flat view in 15 minutes. But what you need to do is you need to give them all the support around that. There's no point in just giving someone a house or a flat and put them in it when it's got no furniture, they're just going to be isolated. They could be drinking and taking drugs in that flat, antisocial behaviour. You need to find them somewhere, and then you need to support them.
So how do you support them with the men? Well, I mean, I know you provide... Actually, let's talk about the services that you provide.
We basically will help with anything, any kind of problem. Like, as long as you're a veteran, as long as you're from Sunderland, we'll help with any problem.
I'm going to ask this now. Why only if you're from Sunderland? I know I'm from Newcastle, and there's a little bit of rivalry there.
So, well, if you think...
But do you take Geordies in?
No.
You don't take Geordies in?
No, only from Sunderland. I struggle if they're supporting Newcastle and they're from Sunderland, but I do let them in if they've got a doctors in Sunderland. That is a downside of me plan. So you've got to think that I started this on my own with a £10 pay-as-you-go mobile phone, nothing else. I had Greg's as my office.
Oh, Greg's now.
So
that's
there was no
the best office.
There was no way that I could solve the world's problems, but I could make a dent in helping people in Sunderland. So that's the way it started. So then we were the first people to ever have an armed forces champion in every GP surgery. So that's never happened anywhere else in the country apart from it's happened with us in Sunderland. So that sort of gives us the perimeter to say, right, if you've got a GP in Sunderland, then we can help. Now, there's other services, not as good as us, obviously, but that and send them to.
Yeah.
But that's how I had to work it out. I mean, I've got staff now, but there's only like, I think 3-4 people get paid.
And I was going to say, how do you fund it all?
I used my own money at the beginning. I used my own money.
So you basically just took this on yourself. You were already volunteering before.
Yeah, I just took it on myself. I thought I would do a better job than what's happening now, and I just did it myself. And then I designed these T-shirts and sold them, and that's where the money come from.
Now that takes a lot of bollocks. Sorry, it does, because you'd been through all that. You'd been through the drug abuse. You'd been through the painkillers. You're diagnosed with PTSD. And what do you reckon that turning point was for you, wanting to dedicate your life to helping people?
It was what my dad dying.
Your dad dying.
That was the turning point. That made me want to help people, because before that I was more or less just wanted to make money. Didn't matter how much. So if I had a quid, I wanted another quid. You know, it didn't really make any difference, whatever it was. I just always wanted to make money but after that, I'm not really asked about money, to be honest. I'm not bothered about it at all. That's why I spent my own money to get set up. That's why I worked for free for 2.5 years.
And now you're getting some funding in?
Yeah, I get funding now. So the Armed Forces Covenant give us some money, pay us for some wages. We have funding from other specialist people, like CCG in Sunderland, give us money, or have give us money. So they're sort of like health people. And we have like now I managed to get funding to employ a business development manager so he can look for funding all the time. So we've been really lucky, you know.
And what sort of services do you provide? Because you mentioned that mental health was the biggest thing.
So we have a on-site counsellor twice a week for veterans. So if you came, there's probably a year waiting list if you asked the NHS. So if you came Monday, you could have a counsellor on Friday. It's as easy as that. We do counselling for families. We do counselling for kids. Nobody else does that. We've got like starting a smart recovery group, so it's a bit like EA, and we're doing that. We do a lot of outdoor activities. We do a lot of dog walking, where you walk and talk about your problems.
I'm trying not to laugh because you said dog.
So that's why I stay away from anyone that bites.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, go on.
So we've managed to buy a building. So from a £10 pay-as-you-go mobile, now we've got a 4-storey building.
Honestly, I just want to say that is one hell of an effort, like you say, from a little mobile phone, from coffees, well, maybe it was a pasty or two in Greg's, passing a coffee in Greg's, to now a building.
Yeah, so it's 4 stories. So downstairs is my office, and we have a drop-in where the veterans can come in all day, 6 days a week, and have food and wash the clothes, get a shower and stuff like that. The next floor is an apartment where you can house up to a family of 4 people if they were homeless. Next floor is a therapy centre, so we do art therapy, we do Reiki, we do counselling. And the next floor is a podcast studio and an IT studio.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to coming down to check out your podcast studio. And where do you see the future? Where do you want to take it? I mean, I'm sure people have said to you, can't you take this nationwide?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot of hard work, and I also work for Sunderland University as well. So I'm a senior lecturer there and a research associate, so all my time's took up. In the future, I don't want to ask people for money, so in the future I want to be self-sustainable, so we've started a removals company. We're hoping to buy houses. If we can buy houses, the idea would be then we'll have a maintenance company, that's all veterans who do the houses up, and then one of them who needs a house gets the house, and then we'll just carry that on.
So you're employing veterans?
Yeah, we only employ veterans, so my business, the idea of being, unless you're a support staff, like as in the office, every other person is being a client. So other than me, in the whole place, they've all got to be veterans and all got to be clients. So then they've been the client, volunteer, part-time and full-time.
Great. And Ger, if there's anybody that's watching as a sort of final word and they are suffering out there, and they're in the Sunderland area. They're in the Sunderland area, and they're GP. What would you say?
Just come along and visit Veterans in Crisis, and we'll help you with anything you need. But if you're not in the Sunderland area, for mental health, you can contact Up Courage. For any other thing in your area, there's a thing called the Veterans Gateway. All you have to do is type that in Google. When it comes up, put your postcode in, and all the services where you live will be on. And
if you don't have a postcode because you're homeless,
you can use if you haven't got a postcode, you can use your doctors. So your doctor, you can do everything from your doctors. Your doctors would let you get your letters delivered. Your doctors would let you sign on at the door and stuff, and you could use that as an address.
True. I mean, what an amazing, amazing journey that you've had. What do you want to leave? What's your sort of legacy to this, all of this?
To be honest, I'm quite happy I'm alive. To be honest, I didn't think I'd get past 25, so I'm 51 now. So God. I think that's about it. I'm just happy I'm alive.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. I've really enjoyed having a Mackem in my home. I can't believe I'm saying that. And I just want to say, from my heart, thank you for everything. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service now and what you're doing and how you're helping the community.
Thank you for inviting us down. It's been a pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.